Hi everyone, my name is Karol and I work as a mobile developer at Druids on Roids, a Polish software house. I'm also a Bitrise expert, and due to the fact I help other people in my company troubleshoot and set up their workflows. And based on that, I created a list of Bitrise features which at least one person was not aware of. Random order of these features is totally random. Okay, so let's start with the run if. Run if is a property of a step which, if evaluates to false, it causes that step won't be run. Let's see how it works. I have workflow in which run if expression is evaluated to false, skipping. As you can see, this step is displayed blue, so it's neither successful nor failed. Its execution consumed only half of a second, so pretty much nothing. And in this case, expression may look a little bit weird for some of you, but it is a Golang template. Basically, we get the value of environment variable called Firebase distribution token. Keep in mind there is no leading $sign, just a value name. And we check if it is not equal to empty string. If value is not defined and environment variable is not defined, then it is the same case as it is empty. So this expression was evaluated to false. There was no Firebase token defined in this workflow, and step was skipped. This kind of expressions may be useful if you are creating some template reference workflows which intended to be reused by other projects. For example, if your company by default uses Firebase app distribution, you can add a step with something like that. But to be honest, nowadays you should use service credentials, not a Firebase token. And in most of the projects it will just work, but if, for example, some projects will be using Microsoft App Center, then each step can still be there. It will consume almost no time. Additionally, often services like Firebase App Distribution or Google Play Deploy may be set up later, not at the very beginning of the project. So until you add this token to your secrets, then this step won't affect the outcome of the build. So you can still have successful pull request checks. As you can see, this technique is also used by official Bitrise steps. For example, activate SSH key. Most of the people is using authentication via SSH keys, and if someone is not using it, the step will be just skipped. Value can be also hard-coded to false. It is useful when you need to temporarily disable this step. For example, something went wrong with the external service like Firebase app, and we need to wait for admin or owner to resolve it, and you are not an owner. So you can just disable this step temporarily, and you don't need to copy, paste, cut, and restore from version control all these steps, but just one line. And what is important, this run if can be specified only in Bitrise YAM. It is not present in the graphical workflow editor. Okay, the next feature is an offline workflow editor. It's pretty much similar to online one. If you look here, this is a local offline workflow editor run on localhost on your local machine. It has no connection to your Bitrise app on Bitrise.io, and it is very similar to online editor. There are a few differences. For example, you can't you can switch storage of Bitrise YAML file on the Bitrise IO, but you can't do this in case of offline editor because this has no connection with your account on Bitrise IO. Triggers, envars, and workflows work the same as the online version. There is no code signing in offline version because the files and variables on the tab are stored only on Bitrise IO, so it doesn't make sense to put it here. We have also secrets here. Despite that, secrets are stored on Bitrise IO. They are not stored on inside Bitrise YAML because it will be the same as environment variables, not secrets in such a case. But secrets here in offline version are saved in a separate file, Bitrise secrets YAML. So keep in mind, if you put something in as a secret in offline version, then you need to repeat that in online one. And in offline we have no stacks and machines tab. Despite that, stack can be set here. Where it can be useful. If you are storing the Bitrise YAML on Bitrise IO, probably it won't be useful. But if you are storing the Bitrise YAML in your repository and you are using online version, then you only change, you need to copy paste or overwrite the file. So using offline may be useful in that case if you are using the storage in the repository. Okay, let's go next. The next feature are built aborted with success. They are also called cancelled. Let's see how it works and how they are different from just normal aborted builds. We have a sample pull request. As you can see, this it passed the Bitrise check. I can merge it. If we go to details, this build is just aborted. By the way, aborted means that execution was interrupted without waiting for the workflow to finish. So it is neither successful nor failed in terms of Bitrise, but aborted build in terms of pull request checks. By default, it is treated as failed. So if I just run the build and abort it, it will be in aborted status. But if I cancel it, which is also called aborting with success, then execution will be interrupted, but the status of this build will be treated as successful in terms of pull request checks. This feature is only achievable by API. You cannot do that by the Bitrise IO web app. Okay, next feature is workflow chaining. Let's see how it works. Okay, let's imagine we have a deploy workflow which builds the app and deploys it somewhere. And before that, we need to do some preparation, like cloning the Git repository. And after deploying, we need to post the status somewhere, for example, to Jira and Slack. And we have also verification workflow, which runs on every pull request. And it has the same beginning steps, cloning the repo, and the same ending steps, like posting a Jira command and sending a Slack message. Unfortunately, you don't need to repeat those parts which are repeated. You don't need to copy paste and duplicate steps like adding it to the main workflow. You can extract the repeating parts to the separate workflows and just chain them. If you click here, You can insert workflow before. For example, let's insert the API env workflow here, and as you can see, it is run before the verify main workflow. And some of the workflows are prepended with underscore sign. Such workflows are called utility workflows. They differ from the plain workflows by ability to run separately. As you can see, they are grayed out. I cannot select prepare workflow and run it neither via this pop-up, neither via API. It won't work because, for example, it doesn't make sense to send only a Slack message or only clone Git repository without doing anything. Okay, so don't duplicate the steps. Use workflow chaining and utility workflow where possible if you have repeating parts of your main workflow. Yeah, next feature is maybe not feature, but just like how Bitrise IO works, is environment variables evaluation order. Well, let's imagine the simple example. We have 3 environment variables. 2 of them are just plain values, and 1 of them is built out of 2 other ones and 1 secret. So this switch replace variables in inputs it's turned on. So we won't have the literal $sign, etc., but the value of this environment variable with this name. And similarly for secrets, we have 1 plain secrets and 1 built out of the 2 another ones. And let's see what was printed. Okay, everything which has the just hard-coded value was printed, no surprise here. However, this environment variable has 1 part missing. As you can see, the env bus was empty here. Despite that, this env bus is defined here. This is because the environment variables are evaluated in order they are declared. So at this time where value of this env bar was calculated, there was no yet env bus defined. It was defined later. So at this time it was empty. In case of secret, we have empty last part. So this env was empty, not defined in this case. It is because the secrets are evaluated before the environment variables. Here we have the full order. So as you can see, secrets are evaluated before. You can use secrets inside the environment variable, but not the other way around. The other consequence of this order is that you can override the values of the environment variables by defining variables with the same name at different stages. For example, you can have, let's say, 1 default application-wide Slack channel and define channel ID in application environment variable, but for one particular workflow, you can override this value of this environment variable by setting a variable with the same name inside the workflow specific environment variable. So it will override this. Pretty much useful in some cases. Next thing, useful mainly for creators of reusable workflows, is ability to put some metadata, some information for users. Let's see how it works. For example, we have custom workflow description here. I can edit it. have a custom step title. Also can edit it. We have a custom step summary and description. And it is saved inside the Bitrise YAML file. And this is the only place where some comments, some metadata can be held. You cannot use the plain YAML comments for this, because it will be discarded. Let's check. Say I am saving it, but if I go back and return, it is removed. This is because this where this YAML file is normalized each time it's saved. Those new lines will also disappear if I go back here. So if you need to put some metadata, some description, do it in the proper places, not YAML comments. Next feature is selective builds. For example, if you have a mono repo like Android, native iOS and backend in the same repository, you can, for example, put something like that. So builds on this Bitrise app will be triggered only if the files under this path in the repo will be changed. So it won't trigger iOS build if only something on Android is changed. Keep in mind this feature works only with GitHub repositories. And the last feature is ability to change the build number, change the nearest build number. We have here the same settings, build settings page. Just can edit it, and let's say this is the next build number. If I go here and rebuild some workflow, it is 998. Despite that, it's already failed. Despite that, the latest build was just 12. As you can see here, you can put the lower bit number that was used last time. For example, 12 is here and also here, so it doesn't need to be unique. This feature is useful if this build number is used for things like calculating the version number, like an Android version code for Play Store, and there is already up on the Play Store, and we cannot just start from 1 because this needs to be monotonically increasing. That's all what I have to present for you. Here are the ways you can find me on GitHub, LinkedIn, mail and Twitter. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.